Hey everybody, so I've been using the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra as one of my two main phones for the past week and a half now. But I'm not going to do a traditional review per se because I'm so late to this phone. There are already like 2,000 video reviews out on YouTube. So I don't think I need to waste time doing the whole traditional review like this is a 6.9-inch display with a Snapdragon 865. Everybody already knows. Instead, in this video, I want to focus more on Samsung's strategy with the S20 Ultra because in my opinion, with this phone, Samsung's taking a bit of a gamble. Samsung's definitely swinging big to try to go for a home run, and it's a little bit out of desperation in my opinion. I'll explain more of that later. And also I'll go over some of my usage and just kind of my gripes with the phone and what I love about the phone. So the reason I think I'm in a unique spot to talk about Samsung's strategy with the S20 Ultra is because I'm based in Asia and I travel to Europe quite a bit, and I'm very plugged in to the phone scene because first I'm in the industry, like I actually know people in all the phone brands, and on top of that I'm also a phone geek who always goes around looking at phone stores and looking at what people are using as I travel. And I'm also American, so I consume a lot of American media too. So that gives me like a full picture of the mobile scene. Whereas I think a lot of US-centric reviewers do not have that. Now, I mean no disrespect. Most of them are very highly qualified professionals, but at the same time, if you read a phone review from WSJ or like PC Magazine, or sometimes even The Verge, they kind of review with a narrow vision, like a tunnel vision of only the US market. And the Android scene in the US market is boring as hell. I mean, you have the Pixel, you have the Samsung Galaxy, and then you have the LG, that's it, and a OnePlus, and maybe a Motorola every now and then. And let's be real, OnePlus, Motorola, even a Pixel, these are still very niche products in mainstream America. So if you're talking to the average American, all they know is iPhone or Samsung Galaxy. And a lot of reviewers, like from CNET, they review from that point of view. And I just think they're not seeing the whole picture because outside the US, where I'm at, I have access to Vivo, Xiaomi, Oppo, Realme, Nubia, ZTE, IQOO. There's like 6-7 other brands, and there's like phones coming every 2 weeks, and they always pack all the specs. And if you're looking at the market from just the American perspective, you're not seeing the true predicament of Samsung phones right now, because in the US, Samsung is basically king of Android. And I think a lot of US reviewers overlook that. And that's why they talk about the S20 Ultra as just another update to the Samsung line. When no, for me, in Asia, I see the S20 Ultra as Samsung really going hard to counter Chinese phones. Because what have we seen in the last 2 years? Samsung will release a flagship, a Galaxy Note or Galaxy S, and then a month later, 2 months later, Oppo or Xiaomi or Realme or like Poco will put out something that has basically the exact same specs, the same Snapdragon chip, probably more RAM, a bigger battery, and maybe even like a larger screen with higher refresh rate at half the price. So that makes things really tough for Samsung's marketing team in Asia. Like I actually know the Samsung marketing person in Hong Kong, and she's told me before, it's tough because every time they put something out, Xiaomi puts something out a week later that's basically the same phone but at half the price. And the sales number definitely reflects that. Even though, again, if you look at it from just a US point of view, you won't notice because Samsung phones still sell very well in the US. But in the rest of Asia, like in China, Hong Kong, Philippines, Vietnam, Singapore, Samsung phones are losing ground to Chinese brands. Like the numbers are out on the web, look them up. Samsung's market share, it's falling by the day. And it's not just in Asia. Even if you look at the market share numbers in Europe, particularly Eastern Europe, you'll see that, again, more and more people are buying Huawei and Oppo and Xiaomi phones than Samsung phones. So the Galaxy S20 Ultra, to me, is Samsung fighting back against the Chinese brands, because what have Chinese brands been doing for the past few years? They've been putting out phones with crazy specs, crazy high numbers, right? That's exactly what the S20 Ultra is doing. Everything about the S20 Ultra is designed to grab attention with big numbers. Like it's designed to pop off the spec sheet. 6.9-inch display, 5,000 mAh battery, 16 gigs of RAM, 108 megapixel camera that shoots 8K resolution videos, 100 times zoom. All these numbers are designed to be like boom, like that on the headline. And I think that's Samsung trying to fight back against the Chinese brands. So now you might be wondering, did Samsung succeed? I would say yes and no. Okay, so let's begin the review part of this video. So let's talk about that screen first. This is, in my opinion, one of the two best screens on the market right now. The other being the Oppo Find X2 Pro. The 120 Hz refresh rate really is just so sweet to my eyes. After I've seen the fluidity of this, I do not want to go back to something less. Like the Galaxy Z Flip, I really like the phone, but 60 Hz panel, and it kind of annoys me. Huawei Mate X, I paid freaking $2,000 for that, and I'm kind of annoyed with the 60 Hz refresh rate. Like the 120 Hz panel is just so stunning and it spoiled me. I'm not going to give it up. So my daily driver is going to be either this phone or the Oppo Find X2 Pro or probably the Huawei P40 Pro, because that one will have a 120 Hz panel too. Okay, let's talk about the S20 Ultra's camera, starting with that periscope zoom lens. So I know a lot of reviewers are saying the zoom lens is a little bit overrated, that anything over 20x is basically unusable, that 100x is stupid. I don't agree with that. I think they're being a little bit too harsh. I mean, it is true. Images that have 100x and 60x are a little bit blurry. They're not like the cleanest image. You're not going to post out on Instagram stories, but it is still useful to be able to get that close to something without physically moving forward, right? Like maybe because I travel a lot, so I see a lot of interesting things out and about, and I just like to be able to get all the way up close to something without needing to cross the street, without needing to get out of my car and like walk 15 steps forward or something. That's something that this lens allows me to do. I mean, check out these footages here. Like, yeah, the 100x or 60x, it's blurry, but it's still giving me more information that I wouldn't have if I was using a Samsung Galaxy Note 10 or iPhone 11 right now. Especially check out this scene right here. I'm seeing this crazy guy basically hanging off the side of a building off a rope. Now with another phone, I can't quite see like what he's hanging off of, but with the Galaxy S20 Ultra, I'm able to zoom in close enough to see the rope that's tied around the pillar and also the text on his back. I mean, how cool is that? If you lower the zoom level a little bit to like 20x or even 30x, I think image quality is still really good, as you can see from these samples here. Okay, so let's talk about that 108 megapixel sensor. This is the part that's a little bit of a mixed bag for me. So first of all, let's get this out of the way. A higher megapixel count does not mean a better photo. That's something phone brands and camera brands do as a marketing hype to try to get you to think, oh, 108 megapixel, it must be a lot better than a 12 megapixel. That is not always the case. A higher megapixel count just means you have more pixels into the photo, but the more pixels you have in a photo, the more light you need to light up the images. So if you don't have a super large image sensor, shooting with a 108 megapixel usually will result in a lot of noise and a lot of grain. So what Samsung's doing to compensate here is Samsung built a large image sensor into this phone. It's like one of the largest image sensors used in a smartphone, because a larger image sensor is needed to light the 108 million pixels that the camera is capturing. And after that, Samsung uses a process called pixel binning that combines 9 pixels worth of data into one to produce a final image that's basically a 12 megapixel shot. So using the combination of the larger image sensor and the pixel binning, that successfully allows Samsung to keep noise level down, to keep enough light for the image. So for the most part, photos captured by this phone is really good, as you can see here. It's so good at low light situations, I don't think I need to turn on night mode at all. Although I still say the Huawei Mate 30 Pro, it's a better low light camera than this phone, because Samsung phones tend to overexpose. But there's a catch to shooting with such a large image sensor. The image sensor on the S20 Ultra is so large, it is almost like you're shooting with a wide open aperture with a traditional camera. So when you shoot with a wide open aperture, that means you get a lot of depth of field effects in the background, but also the foreground, because the field of vision, the focus area is very narrow. So because of that, this phone loses focus a lot. Now, Samsung's auto-focusing system software is supposed to fix that, but the software, I guess, isn't good enough for now because it's not fixing it. I mean, check out this sample right here. I'm trying to get a photo of this yogurt bowl, and you notice that whenever I get too close, the bowl loses focus. And if I pull back a little bit, the bowl gets into focus for like a split second and then loses focus again. So anytime you're trying to shoot something that's relatively close to you, like I'm trying to take a picture of the Z Flip, the camera struggles to keep this thing in focus. Now, if you're shooting just background, like a hill, a building, it should be fine. But if you're someone who takes a lot of product shots or pictures of food or your pictures of your dog, expect bad focusing. Now Samsung says it's aware of the problem already and it's working on a software update to fix the focusing issue. I really hope that's the case, because if not, then the focusing system here is kind of broken and it's really frustrating. The only reason it's broken is because Samsung went for a 108 megapixel camera. Had Samsung stuck with a 12 megapixel camera like it did on the Z Flip or the standard S20, you don't have any of these focusing issues at all. So this is just an issue that's popped up because Samsung needed to go all out on the camera module to compete with crazy ass Chinese brands. Now I'm not even going to talk about 8K video recording because that shit is a gimmick. Like, ain't nobody need 8K video recording right now unless you're MKBHD. But standard 1080p and 4K video performance is pretty damn good. I mean, check out the footage right here. It's pretty smooth all around, but I would say the iPhone 11 Pro is still a better video camera. So the video camera of the Galaxy S20 Ultra is still at best number 2 or number 3. It's not going to be number 1 anytime soon. iPhone is just so far ahead of everybody in Android. Finally, one more thing I want to address. A lot of reviewers say they're getting pretty good battery life with the S20 Ultra. I don't know why that has not been the case for me. Maybe I'm a heavy user, I use the phone more than they do, or maybe because I'm in Asia and I travel a lot, so the networks have to jump between different networks a lot. But for me, this phone has been barely able to last the day. So that means I would unplug at 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. with 100%, go out all day, and by like 10 p.m., 11 p.m., it would be at like 7%, 8%. That's okay battery life. I wouldn't say great. But you know, the reason for that is because I have 120 hertz refresh rate turned on. If I turn off, if I go back to 60, then I'm pretty sure the 5,000 milliamp hour cell will power this thing at least a day and a half for me. But I'm not going to do that because if you use this phone, you want to keep it at 120. Do not buy a Samsung Galaxy S20 and use it at 60 hertz. That's a waste of a gorgeous screen. Alright, so what I like about the Galaxy S20 Ultra, I think the screen is absolutely stunning to look at. I think the zooming system is very fun. And the main camera, it's pretty good in a lot of situations. So this is one of the most versatile and powerful camera systems around. But the bugs in the focusing right now, it's really annoying, and it's a big problem for me actually, because I take a lot of product shots sometimes with a phone when I'm out and about. And this is why the verdict is still out on whether or not Samsung's gamble is paid off. Because yeah, it's true that on paper, this phone finally beats all the other Chinese brands out there, which is something Samsung hasn't done in like 2 years. But at the same time, the price, it's a little bit high. Now the price is okay for me. For a lot of average consumers in Asia or Europe, they might just prefer the Xiaomi Mi Note 10 Pro because it's a lot cheaper. And although it's slightly less powerful, it's good enough that it matches most of these features. So once again, Samsung has very tough competition ahead in Asia and in Europe. But in South Korea and in the US, Samsung once again has no competition. This is still the default Android phone if you're an American. So that's it for this kind of review, kind of not review of the Galaxy S20 Ultra. Apologies if I rambled on a little bit too long. I'm very passionate about the mobile industry. So that's it for now. Thanks for watching.